what we've pointed out is that it's very easy to come up with regulatory mechanisms that prevent these abuses. Again, there's nothing peculiar about gambling. There's a lot of things that could be done on the internet where you could find a tool for money laundering, and so we have ways to try and deal with that. I pushed the bill last year to a vote in committee and actually finally got a bill. Well, I forgot to say, they then decided to come up with regulations under the bill. The regulations restricting banks from doing things have been universally condemned by all financial institutions. They are a terrible problem for financial institutions. How do you know exactly what the purpose was of the payment? It's, again, a great inconsistency for the conservatives who are worried about government regulations burdening the private sector. This is one of the biggest pains for the private sector. I filed a bill to at least postpone the regulations. It first was defeated on a tie vote in the House because the senior Republican on the committee made it a very personal, passionate thing. So I lost a couple of Democrats and he got almost all the Republicans, and we blocked it. By the way, one of the influences against it were the sports leagues, who have come up with a rather extraordinary position that if you allow gambling through the internet, this may actually lead people to bet on sports games. These are people who pretend to be under the impression that no one now bets on sports games. Having grown up in the New York area in the 50s and 60s, long before there was an internet, I will report there were a lot of people who thought they were betting on sports games. I don't know what they were really doing. Apparently, according to the major leagues, they weren't. That is one of the least grounded arguments possible. But there was a reaction on the part of the people who like to gamble, including on the internet, play poker, or other things. So the bill then came back up again and passed the committee. The Bush administration, though, contrary to its promise not to push through last-minute regulations, did push through a last-minute regulation here, banning banks from doing this. The banks think it's a terrible idea. The Federal Reserve, which was ordered to come up with the regulations, thought it was impossible to do. So that's where we are. I did not further push the bill last year because it was clear that President Bush would have vetoed it, because he was very much aligned with the conservative element that tries to ban this. I should note that the major impulse for banning the use of the internet for gambling, as I said, this argument about drugs and smuggling is just a front. It is essentially the view that gambling is immoral, that it is wrong. And so this is one more case of my congressional colleagues, who are, as you know, well known for the exemplary moral lives they all live, instructing the rest of the country how to come up to the high ideals that we meet so regularly. At any rate, now that we have a president who I think is not, I know is not in hock to the right wing, I plan to move this bill. I'm chairman of the Committee of Jurisdiction. We have two versions. One to suspend the regulations, another to repeal the whole thing and set up new regulations. There's a companion bill in the committee that deals with taxation, and I should mention that Shelley Berkeley has been a strong ally in this, to allow there to be a regulated scheme, and like any other activity, it would be subject to a reasonable level of taxation. I am now, as chairman of the Financial Services Committee, pretty busy with trying to adopt a set of rules that will keep us from getting into trouble again. By the way, it is odd that we say no gambling, because the country is in a terrible economic hole right now because of gambling. The difference is that the law that was passed by the Republicans stops individuals from gambling in the thousands with their own money. At the same time, they were allowing other institutions to gamble in the billions with other people's money. We are in more serious trouble because of gambles with other people's billions than with one's own thousands. But we have to get those rules in place. That's the committee I chair should be done with that by September. So it is my intention this fall to bring up in the committee the bills that I'm sponsoring, one to suspend the regulations, another to repeal the whole ban and substitute for it a sensible regulatory scheme. I think they're going to pass. I'll tell you what's happened. The average poker player was not spending all of his hard time watching C-SPAN. There were people watching ESPN more than C-SPAN. And they woke up one morning to find out that members of Congress had banned them from doing something that they like doing with their money that doesn't hurt anybody. And as that word has spread, they've gotten angrier, especially after the Southern District of New York holdover U.S. attorney from the Bush administration just seized money and just engaged in very serious, I think, oppression of people who deserve not to be treated this way. So I am fairly optimistic that we're going to get this repealed, because it just goes wholly against the grain of millions of Americans who have figured out that Congress is trying to stop them from their hobby and are going to react. Now, with that, I'll throw this open and respond to questions or comments. Yes?
Congressman, to touch on what you referred to last, and that was a recent action by the
Southern
U.S. Attorney in the
District of New
Southern
York, yeah.
District of New York. Is it your sense that they pulled that off without the blessing of DOJ in Washington?
I hope so. I hope that the Obama administration, Attorney General Holder, wouldn't be part of this. I'm pretty sure that's the case. It's complicated once, look, when there are dumb laws on the books, they can get enforced. People would say, oh, well, don't worry, nobody enforces that. The worst justification you could possibly have for not repealing the law is, well, it's not enforced. For one thing, even if it was never enforced, that's no way to build respect for the law. But I am hoping that's the case. There's an issue here. You can't have the Justice Department order a subordinate to overlook things, but I do intend to pursue with them the clarification of what the policy is here.